Hey guys, what's going on? You Rounder here, and coming to you with another hand history review. Yep, this kind of boring stuff. If you don't like it, then that's okay. So, just to give you a little update, the format, I've kind of changed my format a little bit. So what I've done is I went into Poker Tracker 4 and I updated some tags. So this is just kind of what I came up with. I've added them as I've been doing my reviews, but pretty much I kind of wanted to be able to categorize some of my errors. I wanted to note the hands that I thought were good hands to send to my coach, whether I played them well, whether I played them bad, and then just a general review tag. So very quickly, I'm just want to run through the system because I've had a lot of throughout my sort of poker career, I've been told like, oh, you want to review your hands, you want to do this, you want to do that. I've reviewed hands before, but like I don't know if I had a good system for it. So I decided that like you feel kind of lost if you're just sort of going through hands and like looking at them and saying like, oh, okay, I think that was a mistake. And even if you take some notes either on the hand or on a separate document, say here's some of the mistakes, try to put it together. I think I've worked out so far, and this will, as everything else, it'll get refined over time. But essentially, what I did is I went over and pretty much grabbed all the hands from this year at any stake. Okay, and whoops, that's going to grab too many hands. We'll just do most recent 1,000. I created a report that pretty much is something I designed that just shows it's all heroes hands. It pretty much just shows all my hands, and then all I did was add the stats I wanted. So I wanted adjusted all in, up and down, and then the pot size. So if I want to go by like biggest pots, or if I want to go by whether I won or lost or whatever it is, then I can. So then what I did is I went over here and I made a quick filter, which is put 15 plus BB in pot. So the way I did that is I went into, I think I put VPIP on as well in that filter. So yeah, VPIP, which I don't know how it wouldn't already be there, but I just added it anyway. And then big blinds contributed amount greater or equal to 15. So all you do is you just go into like hand details, it's down here, and amount contributed to pot, and then I, greater than, and then click that on. So once I did that, So I didn't do this for every hand I've played this year. I went in and I've been playing, as you've probably seen in the recent videos, I've been playing 25 no limit fast. So pretty much in the last, however many days it is. So if we go to results or statistics, sessions, we can see how many sessions I've played. So these are actually 2 table sessions. It only counts them as one. But I've only played, I've done 8 sessions, an hour and a half to 2 hours or whatever, and we're up to like 3,200 hands or something. Okay, so this is not updated. I've got another day of like horrible losses, so I'm actually down at 25 no limit zoom right now, or zone, whatever. Anyway, so I've got 3,200 hands that I'm using as my sort of sample. So I figure every 3,000 to 5,000 hands, if I get to the point where I'm into a good rhythm of doing this every other day or every couple days. Honestly, this set of hands has taken me a couple days of like long days going through it. I'm not even quite done. I'm going to make a video trying to get through a couple more of the final hands, but I think I've got a pretty good system, so I felt like I was ready to show you guys kind of what that looks like. So I go to the report, this hand report, put some stats in here. Then I put in my filter here because I want to look at the bigger pots. Now, if I start doing this and going through all these hands and it's like, oh, I played everything perfectly, then we'll go to smaller pots. But we'll find a lot of the errors that would be in smaller pots in these anyway. The only thing we're not going to see a ton of is if I like fold too much on a flop to c-bet, things like that. So then I kind of went by date, I think, when I first went through these, or pot size, I don't know, it doesn't matter. But I pretty much right-clicked, said replay all hands and report, and I started going through, right? So I just sort of started, blew it up and went through, watched the hands, and pretty much what I do is I go through and I say what I think the action should be, just looking at it. And then if there's a conflict or if I get to a hard decision, something that I'm not like almost 100% positive about, I will sort of think about what the action is a little bit harder and then decide if I take a different action. I'll usually open up the notes. This one I think is actually fairly noted up. So I'll just give you an example. So I go through, 5-4 offsuit is a call. That's fine. 10-10. This is actually a decent board to check raise. It's not the best actually, but that when I see this small bet, 10-10 is has some aspects that are good to check raise. The problem is that it's suited, and we don't have any equity. So if it was rainbow, if this was a 2 of clubs, I think this would be a good check raise. Because it's a 2 of hearts, I think this is a check fold. And if we had 4-5 of spades, this would be a check raise, I think. All right, so like a few different things could happen to make this a good check raise. However, what we have here, I don't think makes it a good check raise. So I end up check raising. He calls. We actually turn an open-ended straight. We barrel, which this is a overfolded card, and we did pick up equity because now we have an open-ended straight. So the barrel, I think, is actually correct. He calls. This is obviously sort of a code red river, and we check fold. And he had a 10 the whole time. So then I'll go in, and since I thought that flop was a mistake, I will go in. And so I kind of go through. I'll go through it a couple times. So the first time, all I will do is say, all right, this needs to be looked at again. Like, right, there's something here. I'll click this and hit review, and I'll add it to the review hands, and then I'll go to the next one. Okay, so I pretty much go through, and I literally went through and watched every hand. Now, if there was something significant that I noted, like I would just grab the note and throw something in real quick. Like on that, I click the button for that river and be like, hey, this looks like it might be the issue. That way later on when I go back to it, it is a little bit easier to see what I'm talking about. So I go through all 125 hands and click, note them up for review. All right, so after I do that, I then filter for all the reviewed hands. Now, when I first filtered this, after going through, I had like 90. So out of 125 large pots, I felt like I wanted to look at 90 of them again. Like I wasn't 100% confident. And that's the key. Like if you're not 100% confident that you're playing it correct to, the best of your knowledge, then you should look at it again and build that confidence. Maybe you did play it right, but you want to go through and sort of reiterate to yourself why it was the correct play. And then for those that were mistakes, why they weren't. So then I went through again, and I would mark them as pretty much, if I thought that like I couldn't get to the answer, I'll put it in this data point hand history, meaning I'm going to submit it to my coach. So I can filter for just those. So these are the ones that I want to submit to my coach for review that I got. And once I actually submit them, I'll move them into a different category. And then if I review them and I think that they're fine, I'll just unmark. I'll go through the data point analysis. Like some of these may have it like. So here, I'll try to find one. So replay all hands, and let me pause it. Okay, so that King Jack hand actually has a note that's a pretty good example. Pretty much what I wrote is, am I slow playing too much, or does this make sense? With the nuts, we want to keep most bluffs in range, but out of position, hard to build pot. Think a little bit on this, and come up with an answer. So pretty much during the review part, right, this one's still marked for review. I haven't done anything else with this hand. It's just in the review bin. So this might, when I go back through this, this might end up being a hand that I want to send to my coach, or once I do some more data point analysis on it, I may be able to sort of categorize it and file it, and maybe I decide that I played it correctly, it's a good hand, and we move on, and I'll put data point, reviewed on that. So let me give you another example real quick. Okay, these are some hands that are data point reviewed. So I am very confident that I reviewed these, came up with a good answer, and I don't really need further input. So we'll see if you guys agree with whatever my decision is. So if these are in here, it means that I've gone through and actually put a little bit of time into it. So like this King 10 hand, looks like we call a 3-bet. That I think is probably noted as being a little light. We should bet here. We do. That's good. On the blank turn, all right, so I've got a turn note here. So it says miss stab on low turn card. So we have sort of a data point that we know if the flop is low, then another low card on the turn is actually a good stab. Now with one high and two low, it does not become as good. So the turn stab, while it is probably profitable, is not as good here. But we did miss taking it. And then we hit a king on the river, and we end up betting small. And he calls, and he ends up having ace-queen. So when we go into the notes, all right, I've got a pre-flop note. It says I should probably fold this pre. And then I have a note. It says missed turn stab on low card, ? And then I said, but I have a data point here. 3-bet pots. It says we won't be stabbing twice in 3-bet pots against the 3-better unless we have a very good reason. Okay, so what does that mean? That means that in this spot, there's actually a data point that says against the 3-better in a 3-bet pot, we're not stabbing blindly twice. So I would say that this qualifies as not a good enough reason. We don't have any equity. It wasn't the perfect board to do that on. And then so the check back was actually fine. On the river, my question is, is the bet sizing okay, or should I just make it standard? I kind of went back through and said, look, for now, instead of trying to be cute with my bet sizes, I should make everything pretty standard. And the reason is, and I'm sorry if this is boring for you guys, but there's a lot of information. There's a lot of stuff that I need to learn. There's a lot of stuff I need to figure out. And if I'm doing a lot of different things, right, if I'm sometimes like making an 8 big blind river stab, and then sometimes I'm like over betting or doing weird things, it becomes very hard for me to like narrow down on concepts where I might be making mistakes or evaluate situations that, how players are reacting to different things. If I keep everything fairly standard bet sizes, standard lines, then I'm in very familiar territory a lot. So here's the problem, right? What if I make this 8 big blind bet and this induces some sort of strange reaction? This is 8 into 30, so this is a little less than a third. It's not like a min bet or anything, but it's a small bet. And I've seen, players kind of lose their mind and raise these. Now, do I want to get raised here with top pair? No. And the other question, so I could actually make this note a little better. This was a couple days ago, or maybe it was even yesterday, but my notes have gotten pretty on point since then. The question is like, what is his calling range? What is his folding range? And how does it react to different bet sizes? So if, we bet here and we bet 2/3 pot or 3/4 pot, does he fold any hands that he was calling with against an 8 big blind bet? Is he calling with a 4 here for 8 big blinds but then folding? And did he 3-bet any 4s, right? Those are all important questions, and you can kind of work through all of that and actually get to an answer that probably looks like he's relatively inelastic on the river, therefore a 3/4 bet size is fine. I'm not saying it's best, I'm not saying it's optimal, but it's fine. We get, more value. And so really, us not taking a standard line here costs us some money. So if we had bet, 20 here, then we get 12 more big blinds blind bet? Like, I doubt it, right? So, bottom line, we're going to use standard bet sizes for now. And then once we find out, once we have a lot of hands and we find out, like, oh, look, these guys are folding second pair when I bet, 3/4 pot. Well, there's a few things there. Like, one, okay, maybe we should be bluffing more 3/4 pot on the river in this line, in this exact spot. Or two, maybe this is the optimal bet, and this is a great bet size based on our read and what we think our opponent's range is. Anyway. Okay, here's another hand, and then we'll go on to actually me doing productive work because this is stuff that I've already done. Okay, apparently I put this, I probably what happened is I marked this data point hand history, as in like I thought I needed more help with it, and then I was going through the data point hand history lines, kind of setting everything up, and I probably figured out that there's actually data to back this up. That means that I understand it now, and I actually ended up playing it correctly. It looks like by this answer played correctly, and we'll see why that is. So this 3-bet's fine, that, and it looks like double Broadway flop. So again, my format has sort of since improved, but we have a c-bet here, which is standard. That's fine. That's like 100% standard. Now, this 2 on the turn, again, this is not a barrel card. We are the 3-better, but we have some data here. So because players overfold flop, their range is weighted towards value on later streets. That's like a very basic default thing that I pretty much put on every turn that somebody calls, because it's important to realize, like, they are slightly more weighted towards value. And then on the flop, players defend well-connected and double broadways, so we don't want to attack those recklessly, meaning they actually defend these fairly accurately as what like Pio Solver would defend them, meaning that Queen 10 and their double Broadway hands actually defend fairly well, even single hand. So they defend fairly accurately, so we don't want to recklessly be barreling. So a hand like 8s, is not going to get a lot of worse hands to fold or to call, right? Like, it's not going to get a ton of worse hands to call, and it's not going to be folding out a lot of any better hands, and even hands with like substantial equity. So we're really only getting folds from like hands that we crush. And that's important to realize that, yes, folding out high equity hands is good, but if we're not going to fold them out, and they're drawing and they have position, it's going to make it hard to play. Anyway, a lot of stuff going here. And then, okay, so, the flop goes check, check. And then, on the river, I don't think we have significant, reason to call. So, what did I say? Again, these notes are a little bit sloppy compared to my notes I've been making today. But so, one, they're bluffing that next to less than normal. So we have 2 strong data points to support this line, that players are defending well. They are stronger. We actually have more data points than this. I would add a few more in. Okay, I added a couple more data points that are actually pretty important. On the river, players are not value betting thin enough. So we should never see a 7 betting here. And that's important, right? What does that mean? So yeah, they're not betting thin enough. What that translates to is we beat no value hands. So if he is betting for value, we're behind. That's our conclusion, right? And it doesn't mean it needs to be 100%. If he turns over 7-8 here, like, okay, that's what we would call an anomaly, and that doesn't change our play from being correct. It just means that this is sort of a randomness that will happen occasionally, but it doesn't make our play any less correct, or it does not make folding any less correct. And then players don't turn weak value hands into bluffs, meaning we don't expect him to take like 2-3 of clubs or 2-3, whatever, like 5-6 of spades here, and all of a sudden like bet with it to bluff us off of a hand like this. Now, a really observant, really good player maybe would do something like that, but in general, the pool isn't doing that enough. So we don't expect him to be turning his made hands. We expect him to just check back with a lot of made hands, and then bet his value hands, which are top pair, good kicker, and better, is what I would expect to see here. So we end up hopefully folding. Yeah, we fold, and it was the correct play. And I think what happened here is I had this urge to call, and so you see my note, like, even when I was reviewing it, I was like, why am I tempted to make this call? And I kind of put, I'm not anymore, because I went through all this work, and I studied it, and now it's like, okay, this is clearly a fold because of all these things, and we can ask ourselves these two main questions, right? Are they bluffing? No, because of all this information, and then if they're not bluffing, do we beat any other value hands? And that's certainly no. And he had, ace king. Okay, one more example, and then we'll get to it. So I think I sorted these in order of date. So if we replay all these hands, we find this king A hand. This is what a analysis looks like. Okay, this is every hand that I am reviewing that I'm going to send to my coach. This is the analysis I've done on it. Okay, so if you're just like doing what I used to do, which is kind of clicking through hands, being like, all right, yeah, I don't like that play, I like this play, I don't like that play, and then moving on, or even just like jotting down like a couple notes or trying to keep track. Maybe that works for you, but this type of work is really helping me be able to bring the most important information to the front of my consciousness very quickly. And that's not always going to play out perfectly at the table with a 15-second time bank and playing zone poker, but you have to think over time it will continue to get better, right? Carrying on. All right, so notice here, I have first review and second review. Right, that's important. So during the first review, when I kind of had that review button clicked and I just went through all these hands, I kind of put just a sort of thought process, little paragraph in here. I said, okay, so let's play the hand real quick. Boop, that's good. This is a pretty good spot for a check raise. This is a decent spot for a barrel, and this is a single raise pot, so I think barreling would be okay here. And then on this queen, after he checks, what did he do? So he bet called the flop, but he checks back the turn, right? So when he checks back the turn, I think that caps his range pretty well. We get a queen, which is a pretty good card against something like sevens and eights. I mean, we block eights, but like sevens. Obviously, sixes boated up, but we would kind of expect a bet on the turn. Pretty much threes, fours, fives, sevens, hands like that, or just overcards that peeled. Maybe an ace high, something like that. Again, if it's not ace queen or like queen nine or queen two or something weird, right? There's probably a lot of air and weak hands in his range, so I figure go ahead and bet. He ends up calling. Okay. So let's see. First review. I thought once he checked back turn, his range is fairly weak. Set to overpairs with likely bet when checked to, so I thought he might have a flush draw or overcards. If the queen misses his range, I figured we get a fold for most of his range, right? So if the queen misses, I figure most of his range at this point is folding. So does this seem okay, or am I missing something about how my range looks or interacts with his? As I think the queen can connect with my range fairly easy. Right, so that's sort of a just general thought process, and I kind of write that out because it's something that I might think as I just review it. So that might be like what you would put in a first go through, if that's sort of what you think. So then the second round, I actually go through and pull data points. So I've got my little flop note here, players overfold, low disconnected, and rainbow boards. We can attack hard by check raising. So that pretty much confirms that the flop check raise is good. This is a low disconnected board. It is suited, but we also have backdoor equity. So one of the new things I did is I would give this a check raise kind of score, and I would give this a 2 out of 3. So check raise score. This would be a 2 out of 3 because we have low and Actually, it would be low and disconnected. The other feature would be rainbow, but it's not rainbow, so it only gets 2 out of the 3. Low, disconnected, and rainbow would be like the thing, but paired also I think adds like I don't know half a point. So this might be like a 2.5 out of 3 because it's paired. Okay, and then we have backdoor equity. So because we have backdoor equity, plus backdoor equity, and we're good. Again, like we're trying to sort of quantify everything. We want hard data, we want hard facts. We don't want, I feel like this is happening, this seems like this or that. We want to be clear about what's happening. So then we go to the turn, and again, I bring in data points. After a check raise is called, opponent is heavily weighted towards value. All right, this is specific with flop check raise. So he's heavily weighted towards value at this point. Now, value doesn't mean like nuts. Value could mean a pair of 5s. It just means that after he calls, he has a lot more value. And I would add or highly equity-driven hands. All right. So because players overfold flop, their range is weighted towards value. Again, that's more general. This is specific to check raise. This is all the time. If we check raise low broken boards, we can barrel high turn cards. Okay, since players do not defend enough on the flop with overcards versus raise. So this isn't the case, right? This isn't a high card. So this data point, while it exists, I'm sort of putting this here to clarify that if I thought maybe this in the back of my head was a thing that was happening, it's not. So this is not something that we should be worried about. And then the turn, I've got another bit. So if the flop is 2 flush, the turn is blank, players overstab if checked to. I said I doubt this applies after calling a check raise on the flop. I just don't have this information. I have this in my notes, but I don't know exactly how it applies. So I've got a question here. It's like I've got a data point that I'm not sure exactly how it applies. But this answer looks like it's a check fold on the turn based on all this. Strong, made hand. We don't pick up any equity. It doesn't look like a good barrel card other than the fact that it's low. But remember when so this is really important. Like I watched that hand, I was like, oh, this looks like a good spot to bet. Well, when I actually go through and look at it, it's not a good spot to bet. But I saw that, and you just saw me say it. I just said it just in this review again. So this is not a situation that I have like integrated fully. I understand that the data is there, and I can reason it out. But when I actually watch the hand and see the hand, I'm not making these connections with the actual play. And so it's something I need to focus on, review, keep writing down until I really get that once they call the check raise, like we really need to pick up equity. And this, if it was a flat call, if I bet and he called and the 6 came, then it would be a good barrel. But because he called a check raise, this doesn't make a good barrel. If it was a queen, it might make a good barrel, which kind of gets us to the river. So we need to pay attention to the full line, which I think we do. And said, I think there's a data point or hotspot that after we check raise on flop and turn checks through, which it does, that we can reopen aggression on the river as a hotspot, right? So once we check through after he calls the check raise, he really has weakened his range checking in position. He's like very capped. So it really does look like a pair of like 5s, 7, like 3s, 4, 5, 7s, or some sort of like club draw, right? A club draw is possible. Really, there's no straight draws possible. So it's like a club draw or those small pairs. Maybe even like a pair of 10s, which we wouldn't really expect to fold, but that's the only real value hand we expect to run into. Other than that, we really don't think he has anything, and I think that's a fairly accurate read. So my question for Nick, my coach, what is the data point to use, and shouldn't a standard bet size work best and give us a decent price? And I'm asking, is this an anomaly that we should write off, or am I missing something that makes this river not a good spot to bluff? Because after I went through all that analysis, it still looks like a good spot to bluff for me because of everything I just said. So I bet, and he calls with ace high. All right, Right? So I'm like, obviously, when this happens, I'm like, God damn it, I'm pissed off, and why did that guy call? What is going on? Like immediately, like how did I screw this up? Like I, read his hand correctly, I made the right bet, and he still called. Well, it's probably an anomaly, right? Like it's probably just like, oh well, that's weird, and move on. However, I want to make sure because it's such a strange spot, and it brought up a couple questions. I kind of want to know how strong this turn read is. Does it apply here in the case we're talking about? Are any of these assumptions sort of wrong? Is there something that I'm maybe misjudging here? Obviously, I don't think most players call with ace high, but I just want to make sure all the other analysis is correct and sort of confirmed so I don't lose my mind. So this is a little bit of like, injustice, but really there's some interesting data points that came up when reviewing it that I had questions about. So that is what a hand looks like that I am putting in the data point hand history. Unless I have all this analysis, I'm not giving a hand to my coach. I'm never going to just send him a hand history and be like, hey, what do you think of this? Like that would never happen, right? This is another one, right? Just to give you an idea, right? This is what is going into the hands that I'm sending to my coach. Like full, first look thought process. Then the second one where I go through, I try to grab specific information. This one I have a little bit of theory, right? So this hand happens to be a spot where I triple barrel. Okay, I flop open-ended in a multi-way. I actually bet here, which I think is okay. I think checking would be okay too. Right, the 8 is a low card that shouldn't connect too well with our opponent's range, and so I barrel again because I still have equity, and I expect the low card to generate some more folds, and then the low card pairs, and I end up here with queen high, and I decide that my opponent has check called twice. I'm sort of at the bottom of my range, which again, this is why I put like, hey, this is theory. And I said, we don't triple off multi-way with air very often, so queen high should be a pretty good hand to use as a bluff. Meaning, we don't get here that often with air, so it seems like queen high, like from a theory perspective, should be a bluff here sometimes. And I end up overbet jamming in, and he does fold. And he actually folded ace-king. So, it's cool that he folded ace-king. I don't know if most players are going to be folding ace-king here. So I don't know if this might be a negative EV bluff against the pool. Even though this time I'm not sure that it quite works. And I just want to understand a little bit better about when we're actually tripling off, what data we should be using. So there's all this stuff, and then I talk about, is it okay to revert back to theory? Does this make sense? This is not a code red card, meaning if he's calling here with like queen 10, ace jack, whatever, like if this was a queen, this would be much worse. If this was an ace, a queen, or a jack, ace, queen, or jack, one, I would get showdown value on all but the ace. No, the ace would give me a straight, right? So ace, queen, or jack, like, would be totally different. Those would be code red runouts. Another heart would be code red. So those would not be good spots, I don't think, for our opponent's calling range, because he's very like pair, right? He like once he calls twice, he's got a lot of like pairs and showdown value, and his pairs are going to make two pair on a jack, queen, or ace pretty often. Anyway, that's that. Okay, so this is already 34 minutes, not what I expected. Let's try to get through at least one hand so I can show you guys what the process looks like. I believe, replay all hands and report, I believe I'm on this 10-10 hand. Again, just to give you an idea of what some of the notes look like. This is like a 9-6 hand. Really simple hand and like lots of notes on it because I thought it was interesting. So again, as I go through all this different stuff, okay, so now we can kind of tell this is one that isn't quite ready. All right, so I don't know what this hand is right now. I might remember it at some point. I remember the pre-flop action because I was just doing this before I started the video. So 3-bet here, calling is actually fine too. Let's see here, but I'm not going to make any sort of note because I think that's okay. Okay, this should be a standard C bet. All right, the turn is a deuce, so I think that he checks. All right, so just real quick, turn. All right, we have a decision point to bet or check, and I think one thing we can do is just very quickly look at like functionality. So do we get better hands to fold, and do we get worse hands to call? So better hands fold, no. Some worse hands can call. And those would be things like flush draws, ace nine. That's about it. Okay. So flush draws and ace nine type hands. I mean, like that's queen nine maybe, but that's in general. Is like that's what we get value from, and we could do like a whole range versus range thing and say, okay, well, how many ace nines are in there, and then how many kings are in his open calling range. There's obviously a discounted amount of ace king because that'll sometimes 4-bet. There's a ton of king queen. There's a bunch of king jack suited. Probably some king 10 suited, although only one combo of king 10 suited. So there's a lot of kings. There's maybe 3 nines. Probably 3 nines, right? Like ace 9 offsuit. I don't think queen 9 offsuit's calling the 3-bet. It might, maybe one combo of queen 9, something like that. But if you think about it in those terms, flush draws, you're going to have all the ace X of diamonds, right? Ace king, queen, ace jack. There are a bunch of those. However, all those ones I just named also have overcard outs against me. So one, they're going to call. Two, they can raise very nicely on this board and raise me off of my equity. Ace jack or ace queen would make a great raise here. So I think that I don't think that we should bet here. Right? I don't think the functionality is strong enough. So functionality. Just put like not strong enough to bet. So this just isn't high up enough in our range to be value betting. That's another way to put it. So we can get called by worse, but not enough. We do check back. That's good. We get an 8 on the river. Okay, so now we have 7, 8, 9, 10. So I block like 10 jack. So like not too scared of straights. He could have hands like 2 pair. If like a 9-7 suited called the 3-bet, right? Not too likely. A 9-8 suited, a little bit more likely. So there's like 9-8 suited, a couple 9-7 suited, maybe like half a combo of 9-7 suited. And then all his kings that checked and all his missed flush draws. So we're up against a range of like a couple 2 pairs, a bunch of kings, a bunch of missed flush draws, most of which are ace high. Right? And so like one thing about an ace high flush draw is it's sometimes going to check to get value, and that's something I probably wasn't thinking about at the time. I just saw flush draws. So he bets small, and let's go to some data points. So let me go pull some data points, and then we'll talk about them. So just real quick, one thing to do is talking like this. This is kind of weird that I'm doing this. Like usually I wouldn't do this. I would just sort of go find data points. So I don't really like what I did here. So I'm going to add some actual data points here, and then I'm going to show you the data points on the river, because instead of just talking about it or thinking about it, what we want to do is just grab concrete information about that spot that we can use to make a decision. That's the key. We don't want to be kind of fussing around with this like, not strong. Like, those things are all true. All the things I just wrote there are true, but they aren't all that concrete, and they aren't all that easy to just like grab in an instant so that we can discuss them. I'm really worried about the volume. Like, I'm volume on my audio bar, so I really hope this isn't like crazy quiet. Oops. Alright, be right back. Alright, so I went back through, pulled some stuff up, and found some good stuff. So we talked about the functionality, and on the turn, some other interesting turn stuff is we expect to actually get a fair number of folds here. There's actually something that also says that the imposition player will overstab here, so like we'll overbluff here. We don't want to really be doing that. But because players overfold flop, their range is weighted towards value on later streets. We've seen that one like in every hand that we get to the turn. And then, my AC just turned on. Sorry about that. Hold on. It wasn't actually the AC, by the way. It's the heat that turned it off. So, yeah, they're going to have a stronger range. Now, it says second barrel a lot since people overfold the turn out of position versus second barrel, which is true. But the thing is we don't really need him overfolding here. We're not bluffing. So, in a spot that he's overfolding, it doesn't really make sense to bluff with a value hand. We're pretty much guaranteeing that we only get called by better. Probably means that he folds almost anything we dominate. And then on blank turns, which the two of clubs is about as blank as it gets, players overfold. So we've got all these things saying he's pretty much going to overfold here, which isn't really that great for us because it means that we're only going to get called by value hands, and we know that he has a lot of value in his range because he called the flop. All right, so the answer is check back, not getting called by worse than half position on river. This is kind of important too, because we can actually play correctly on like a code red river and sort of know what we should do. Okay, now we get to the river, and our opponent bets on the 8 of hearts, which is not a code red quite, but it's also not great. I don't really expect him to have a lot of like 10-6 or 10-jack here. I mean, 10-jack's possible, but obviously we block a lot of it. So, yeah, it's definitely not impossible for him to have 10-jack. So the two main questions we ask on the river, or in any spot where we're calling, is how often is our opponent bluffing, and do we beat value hands? Now, I filled these answers in already, but then I use these data points to get that information. So on the river, players are not turning weak value hands into bluffs often enough, meaning we don't think he's going to turn ace-7 into a bluff here, or we don't think that he's going to randomly turn a pair into a bluff on this river. It's just not being done that often. And then players aren't betting thin enough, meaning that like we don't really expect him to be doing this with nines, but even if he had like jacks or queens, we probably wouldn't expect this because players are not betting thin enough. Not only that, but there's weak kings in our range, so we're fairly protected, I think, when we bet and then check back on the turn. Like we can have some weak kings. Then we have a bet size. So this tells us that he's not bluffing that often. Now, if he's not that he's not betting thin enough. So, meaning if he's betting for value, we're not beat. So that kind of answers question 2 here. Do we beat value hands? Well, these 2 data points suggest no, because they're not betting weak enough on the river. And then how often are they bluffing? Well, this is the data point I would point to and say that the bet size tells us that he's not bluffing that often. Small bets are just not used as bluffs that often. So this, this what it looks like a sort of a river block bet with a like a medium strength hand. So I think that, I think that we can essentially put him on a king and fold. Now, I'm not sure. Yeah, I think this is pretty much solved, right? This is pretty much the answer. So I think our answer here is called, it's about a 13 big blind mistake. The only problem is that we really lowered our. The only reservation I have about saying that this is a mistake is we kind of lowered our we capped our range when we checked back the turn. And so there could be some like queen jack of diamonds and things like that would take a stab here, I think. But I mean, there's not that many combos of that, and I think they would generally bet a little bit larger as bluffs. But that would be the only question I have. And now I'm adding stuff back into his range that honestly was probably there before. I just didn't mention it. So I don't have 100% confidence in this. So I think it's actually worth keeping it as a hand history review hand. I'll put my answer there, and then I'll put my question. And I'll type it up, and then we'll... So in general, I don't think my errors are almost never folding too often. I think I've got a note, right? I've got a folded to opponent bluffed us note, and oh, I thought he had a king here. What happened? Hold on. Ah, interesting. I forgot that he bluffed here. So, yeah. So, like, you can see how close this is, right? Like, even going through, and maybe, I don't know, maybe subconsciously I knew that happened, but I actually forgot. I thought he had a king here. That must have been a different hand that had a similar run out where the guy had a king. I was literally just about to say, like, the problem is that I'm not seeing the results all that often where somebody is bluffing here. Like, literally, those are my next words. After he turned over the king, I was going to say, you know, the problem is I usually see the king here, and I don't have a lot of evidence that suggests that people are making bluffs in this spot. But yeah, now I really think it's a question. And I thought it was a 13 big blind mistake when I folded, but I don't know. Yeah, no, obviously I didn't fold. It seems like the answer is fold river. We were bluffed this particular time, and yeah, I think there's some questions around this. So you can kind of see like there are some data points that suggest a fold, but because I look so capped here, does that sway it? And that's really where I start to ask questions of like a coach or somebody who, you know, that's where I suggest you start going once you have done all this. Once you've gone through, sort of weighed everything and been like, look, there's some specific things that I don't really know exactly how to weigh, or maybe there's a data point that I'm missing. So mine is, how am I weighing the fact that I've now checked back my range and sort of under-repping my hand with the fact that players are not value betting thin enough. So, right, like, do we beat value hands? Like, this we analyze perfectly, right? I think these two things are correct. Players do not turn weak hands into bluff, and they're not value betting thin enough. So I think those two things are good. Do we beat value hands? No. Now, how often is he bluffing? Notice I didn't put never. I put not often. And the only thing I really had to go on is the bet size. So now that I actually know that he's bluffing, so I can kind of do some results-oriented questioning, which is the bet size data point enough to fold here? If he had bet 3/4 pot, would I think it was more of a fold or less of a fold? Like, I don't know. I would probably, if he bet bigger, I would grab, the data point that says that the bigger the bet is, the stronger villain's range is. So, yeah, I'm not sure. It's kind of tricky. But anyway, what we'll do is, and I marked this as an opponent bluffed us. That's how I kind of knew that happened, as I saw that I had this tagged. So I am going to send this in. I do have this marked. And yeah, I don't know if it's a good hand yet or a bad hand yet because I'm not really sure. Meaning it's probably very close, right? Like tens is probably a mixed strategy in a solver. Like calling with tens here is probably a mixed strategy of sometimes you call, sometimes you fold. The tens do block straights. I had a diamond blocking a flush draw. I don't know. Anyway, I don't want to beat this to death. This has already been less productive than I wanted it to. We've got 10 minutes left. So, okay, we're done with that hand. looks like, oh no. So I've got some round one notes. I think it's kind of good to do the whole, like if we go back here, we have our round one notes here. And then we have round two notes. So we can kind of see how we looked at it at first and then how we look at it once we get into more detail. I think that's important to do. You can see like the hands that are close, the hands I'm sending are hands that I'm really like not lost on. I've got a lot of information. I have a lot of stuff to go on. I think they're very close, and I'm looking for what information we can use to try and make the best possible decision. That's sort of the difference. What do we have here? We just have that we want it reviewed. That's the only tag. I'm going to try to finish this up in the next 9 minutes. Keep this at only a 1 hour video. 3-bet here. We can probably fold this. I got to check my 3-bet ranges. Actually, let me check that right now. All right, just check. So queen 9 is not a 3-bet. Queen 9 suited would just be a fold here. It's just one outside my high. My lowest 3-bet is queen 10. So again, we'll just do a little note. Fold pre king queen 10 suited. And just typing that out and reminding myself, all right, versus cutoff open, queen 10 suited is my lowest 3-bet. All right, anyway, not a huge mistake. C-bet standard, that's fine. We turn equity. I don't remember this hand. This hand I thought I'd already submitted. Have I not submitted this? Huh, I could have swore I already submitted this one. Definitely an interesting hand. So we check. He bets like a sort of what I interpret as a merge sizing, and this is sort of our big decision point. Flop is standard, so our decision point is on the turn. Call or raise. So first, I would right. We want to pretty much look for a data point that tells us what we want to do. So there's a couple things that I can think of off the top of my head because I've already done this. So yeah, you can see that I call these data points, but they're not really. Like these aren't data points. Like the merge bet sizing is the king connects with the opponent's flop calling range, which may make him less likely to fold if he's improved. Like kind of. I mean that's a little bit. And a hand like 10-8 could call. Like I guess like those are sort of data points. Those aren't really great though. So we can do better. Oops. That's not what I wanted. Here we go. So turn, what I would note is we're out of position. I happen to know that there's a very strong data point on the turn with draws. That reads something like this. Pretty much anytime you have 8 or 9 outs, it's usually not that bad to raise. Check raising is not going to be that bad when you have an 8 or 9 out draw on the turn. Now, we also have showdown equity, and there's I think there's something kind of important here that I don't know if it applies, and that is that in position. Where is it? It's pretty much something that says that I think it's maybe with value hands on the turn that you want to call more in position because we can call wider with showdown hands on the turn because players don't triple barrel enough. It doesn't really apply here, so we're not going to put it. But again, we kind of know all the river data, which is players aren't bluffing enough. So that might make getting to showdown more valuable since we have showdown value. However, like, is this player ever betting with something worse than a 9? Like, rarely. And if they are, like, that's okay too, because whatever they're betting with probably has some equity. But they're not. Then we have the issue that this is a true thing, is that we've got a king on the turn, which is going to connect with the opponent's range a fair amount, meaning that, if he had top pair with king jack, now he has 2 pair. If he had 9-8, right, if he had a king 9, king 8, now he has 2 pair, which probably doesn't fold and is ahead of us by quite a bit. But we have this data point, which says raising can't be that bad. And then the fact that players are not going to value bet thin enough, and they're not going to turn their weak hands into bluffs on the river, I think are actually turn data points that we should kind of think about. So I would say that these sort of river data points mean that just calling might be better sometimes, because we don't expect players to bluff, and we have a showdown hand. And then we can kind of weigh that against raising. So this is one where I really don't know the answer. I think it's really close. I don't. So the question is, let me type it out. All right. So I pretty much put, like, how do I weigh the fact that I have showdown value and players won't bluff enough on the river, and the fact that raising turn with strong draws gains fold equity? So that's a reasonable question, I think. And then I also added the bet size. So bet size, small bet usually indicates a merge range. And then we have sort of the information why we're considering checking back or calling. But yeah, I mean, I think looking at this, I still think raising makes the most sense. We've got a ton of equity. We can push him off of a lot of better hands. I mean, I think any 1-pair hand probably folds here. Like, I don't think ace-king calls, right? I mean, if he has ace-king here, it's probably, what was the flop action? Yeah, bet call. I mean, yeah, ace-king of clubs here. Like, I think just, maybe not. I don't know, maybe not. But if I check jam here and he has ace-king, he's in a real tough spot. If he has ace-jack, he's, almost certainly folding. So, yeah, I'm not sure how often that is the case and how often he's betting with those. But if he bet, like, 3/4 pot here, he's not folding, right? He doesn't have enough behind here to fold. But right here, I can make a pretty nice, like, big raise. And while it does look like there's some draws, it's also kind of a code red turn as far as queen 10 got there. And I have a queen, so I don't know. I think raising's okay. It's what I end up doing. And we get there on the river. Except, so did he. He had king jack. So I don't think that we played it wrong. I just kind of want to know how to weigh those things out. Anyway, guys, this is how I'm doing hand reviews now. It's pretty slow. It goes faster when I'm not making a video and explaining things. But yeah, so that hand is just a data point hand history. I'm not sure if it's wrong, but it's done now, so that's good. I check to see that they're done because they'll have the question for Nick at the end. Like, I make sure that I have a specific question. So you can see I'm on queen 9. All these above here already have it done. Right, this one doesn't. This one doesn't. So right now I'm just trying to work through all these hands that I kind of marked as, and some of these I might not actually use as data point hand history. Like, I may actually look through, do the data point analysis on the hand, and then decide that I don't need it, that I don't need the review, and that's good too. So again, when we go back here and we look at those, we have 14 that came out of this my 25 NL fast tables, whatever. So we'll go ahead and submit. We submit them 5 at a time. So that's not bad. So I would say if I do like 5,000 hands reviews, then I should have, between 15 and 20 hands to send out, which is, probably a little bit more than he'll be able to get back to me. But, I'll just try to have to, the better I play, the less I'm going to have for review. So I think a little bit more in the beginning is going to be inevitable. And then again, as they're these are ones that I've submitted, which we have to clear out we have to put all stakes. So these are ones that I've submitted that I'm waiting on answers. He hasn't done a video yet, so I don't have answers on any of them. And then I can do things like look at all the bad hands, and I can go through and add up all the mistakes I think I made. I can compare things that are kind of interesting. So how many times have I made a mistake, or how many times has the opponent bluffed us, whether it was a mistake or not, which would also be like an incorrect fold. Sometimes opponent bluffed us, I just marked because I want to know how often it's happening. I only have 4 hands marked with that. Now I'm not saying there's not more because I haven't been marking them all like that, but over time I'll be able to be like, all right, how many times is the opponent bluffing us, and how many times are we making a calling mistake? Right? So you can kind of see more often than not, if it's close, right? This is totally very low sample size, very anecdotal, but where I'm seeing mistakes, or where I'm even seeing, potential, is calling too much, right? There's sort of this idea, and if we look at they're marked bad, well, this is marked. So I wish you could do only the calling mistakes that are marked as bad hands. I don't know if there's a way to do that. Yeah, I guess you'd have to do some weird thing where you exported them and then reference them and pull them back in or something like that. But or if there was a way you could put a column for what note, what notes are in it or something, and filter that way, that'd be really cool. That would be a pretty cool feature. But yeah, we can see we're making all these calling mistakes. Incorrect folds. So I've got one that I think is an incorrect fold so far. Again, I just started doing this, so we'll start to see more as time goes on. But I like this. I like being able to sort of organize things by tags so that I have a good idea of what's going on. And then, like I said, organize it by tag, see what's going on, and then drill down deeper. And again, as I iterate, as I do sort of 5,000 hand samples doing this, not only that, but every couple weeks, my coach will be doing a 5,000 hand sample, where he pretty much does the same thing, maybe not in this organized a fashion, but he'll go through 5,000 of my hands, pull out things that he thinks are wrong, which may be some different mistakes. I'm sure some will be the same, some will be slightly different. Again, kind of picturing those iterations of going through this cycle over and over again. I cannot imagine, and I've said this before about other study habits I've used, but I cannot imagine that if I do this for 3 months straight with a coach that's guiding me, that I won't have massive results, or massive improvement at least. So anyway, I'm going to stop the video. I'm going to get back to it. I'm going to try to finish up these hand histories, and then maybe I'll have some time to play some more hands tonight. I hope you guys enjoy this. I apologize if you're not really interested in the process, but I think that I actually, somebody messaged me on Skype and they were talking to me a little bit about this and about the process. So I thought I'd kind of go through how I'm doing it, what process I'm using, so that if you guys like this and think it's interesting and would like to be able to discuss hands with me in the future or talk things, if I start a study group or whatnot, then you understand the system I'm using so that you can kind of communicate with me in a way that makes sense. Again, I apologize if you wanted kind of more content and less on the process. I'll try to identify that in the title of the video, though, so that you're not caught off guard. All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, this is U-Rounder. You guys keep on studying.